Welcome to reviewing your Unit 5 test. I'm going to start with verifying trig identities today. Remember that when we verify a trig identity, that means we are going to change the left-hand side or the right-hand side or both to make them match, but we're not going to move things across that equal sign. So my first step might be changing secant to 1 over cosine. And for now, I'm going to leave the right-hand side alone. Tangent x times sine x. I see a subtraction, and that prompts me to maybe subtract these two fractions. So I have 1 over cosine x minus cosine x over 1, which means this side needs a common denominator. The common denominator will be cosine x times cosine x. All right. So we have a common denominator between the two of cosine x. And the numerator now will be 1 minus cosine times cosine, which is cosine squared x. Again, I'm going to leave the right-hand side alone. All right, we have a trig identity that matches 1 minus cosine squared x. Kind of. The trig identity says sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals 1. So if I need to solve this so that it matches 1 minus cosine squared x, I'm going to subtract cosine squared x from both sides. And that gives me sine squared x equals 1 minus cosine squared x. So I'm going to replace 1 minus cosine squared x with sine, because that's what it's equal to. So now I have sine squared x over cosine x. And at this point, I see that there's a cosine in the denominator, and there are two sines on top. And I also recognize that tangent can be rewritten as sine over cosine. But I'm not moving anything else. Sine is still going to stay right there. Okay? This time I'm going to leave the left-hand side alone. And I'm going to convert sine times sine to sine squared. And it's going to all be over cosine. Ta-da! So we made the left-hand side match the right-hand side without moving anything across the equal sign. All right, number 2, we can start off a similar way. We can change everything to sines and cosines if you'd like. So tangent would be sine over cosine, all over sine. Be very obvious with your division bar there. Equals cosecant is 1 over sine, and secant is 1 over cosine. All right, so again, I see a minus sign right here. Let's go ahead and add those fractions together. So this becomes cosine x over cosine x. So the numerator of this gigantic fraction becomes cosine x minus sine x over cosine x all over sine x. All right, I think I'm going to leave this alone on the right-hand side for now because I don't know what's going to come on the left-hand side just yet. I have a fraction being divided by a fraction. So I'm going to change flips. So I'm going to keep the numerator, cosine x minus sine x over cosine x times, and I'm going to flip this denominator over, so 1 over sine x. This is 1 over sine x minus 1 over cosine x. Okay. So multiplying these together gives me cosine x, excuse me, minus sine x over cosine x sine x supposed to equal 1 over sine x minus 1 over cosine x. So I could separate this into two different fractions. Would that help me? Yeah, it would help me because I might have to scoot over here though. So if I rewrite this as cosine x over cosine x sine x minus sine x over cosine x sine x, it's still supposed to equal 1 over sine x minus 1 over cosine x. Okay, well, now these can cancel out because I have a cosine in the numerator divided by a cosine in the denominator. Same logic over here. So now, what's left in the numerator? A 1. Denominator is just sine x. There's a 1 left in the numerator and a cosine x left in the denominator. And look at that, it matches. Yay. Okay, that's the end of our verify video. You can check out YouTube if you need more examples before your retake.